All you have to do is look at the basics and you'll see. It looks like a very serious event, but we'll find out. When they look at the documents, I think people are going to see a lot of bad things happen. I hope it's not so, because if it is, there's never been anything like it in the history of our country. We now call it Spygate. You're calling it Spygate.
So new tonight, we could see what evidence there is on that FBI informant who reportedly tried to infiltrate the Trump campaign in the lead-up to the 2016 election. Now, according to the New York Times, the White House has now ordered wider access for the classified documents that detail that investigation. In other words, files once only accessible to the Gang of Eight will soon be available to all the members of the House and Senate Intelligence Committees to take a look at. Here now, Alan Dershowitz, Harvard Law Professor Emeritus and author of the new book, The Case Against Impeaching Trump. Alan, great to see you tonight. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
What do you think is the significance of the fact that the White House is now going to expand the number of people who can look into this issue of when this informant was hired and what the timing of that tells us about what initiated this investigation in the first place?
Well, I think it's a good development, and I think ultimately the American public has to know what went on here. We may not be able to know some of the specifics which are classified, but we ought to learn the general parameters of what happened. Remember, I went through the situation in my life where the government put spies in the anti-war movement, the civil rights movement. So every civil libertarian should be concerned about, even if there's a possibility that an informant was intruded into a political campaign. That's just not right. That's just not American. And, you know, that's why I called for an independent, nonpartisan commission to investigate the whole election, because Mueller is not going to look into this because it's not a crime. And the congressional committees are going to bicker against each other, Republicans, Democrats. There's Republican truth, there's Democrat truth. If you had a nonpartisan expert commission, there'd be real truth. And that's what the American public is entitled to find out what actually happened in this election.
Yeah, I think everybody should want to know the answer to that question. With regard to Peter Strzok's testimony this week, here is Rudy Giuliani, lawyer to the president, talking about this last night. Take a listen.
Mueller should be ashamed of himself. Those Democrats trying to protect that liar Strzok today should be ashamed of themselves. And every FBI agent I know wants to see this guy drummed out of the Bureau.
What do you make of that, Alan? Go ahead.
He should be drummed out of the Bureau. The idea that a man would make those kinds of statements while he's involved in an investigation and not recuse himself. He should have recused himself. And he's telling us, yes, I was biased, but the bias didn't influence his decisions. We all know as lawyers that bias influences decisions even unconsciously, even if you don't know. That's why no lawyer would ever allow a person like Peter Strzok to serve on a jury against somebody with whom he had that kind of a biased approach. So, you know, this is a serious issue. And both Democrats and Republicans did not look good yesterday. But the lowest of the low points came with Congressman Cohn of, I think, Tennessee, where he offered this guy a medal, a Purple Heart. I mean, what an insult to the men and women who have been wounded and hurt for the rest of their lives and earn a Purple Heart. To give this guy a Purple Heart because he had some hard questions thrown to him by some belligerent congressman? What an insult to American soldiers, sailors, and service people.
Yeah, highly, highly inappropriate. This is a tweet that Rudy Giuliani put out with regard to these indictments that Rod Rosenstein announced. He says, of the Russian intelligence operatives, he says, the indictments Rod Rosenstein announced are good news for all Americans. The Russians are nailed. No Americans are involved. Time for Mueller to end this pursuit of the president and say President Trump is completely innocent. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, this indictment proves that we never needed a special counsel. This indictment could have been brought by ordinary prosecutors, ordinary FBI agents. There's no conflict here. It's Russians they're going after. There's no president. There's no people around the president. There's no conflict between the attorney general, the deputy attorney general, and Americans. It's all Russians. Why do we need to spend $20, $30, $40 million, have special counsel appointed to do a routine national security investigation? Number one. Number two, we'll never find out the extent of the guilt of these people because, of course, they're never going to go on trial. They're indicted, but they'll never go on trial. You think the Russians are going to extradite them? You think they're going to travel to the United States and come to Disneyland and get arrested? Of course that's not going to happen. So the will be the end of the process. And indictments are just one-sided allegations. They're not proof.
Alan Dershowitz, always good to see you, sir. Thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.